What's up everybody? Welcome to the Spoiled Brat Films YouTube channel. My name is Nick and I am the owner and founder of Spoiled Brat Films. Now, if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, like, comment. You already know how it goes. I don't gotta tell you. We're gonna try to do more of these types of videos very soon, so please subscribe if you like what you see today. We're gonna talk about my top 19 films of 2019. Now, let me preface this by saying this is not an objective list of what I think are the best films of 2019. This is a subjective list of my personal favorite films. So there may be certain films that are ranked lower than other films even though they're objectively better, but the other films I just enjoyed more and I just find more of a rewatchability with them. Let's get to my honorable mentions before we get to the actual list. For my honorable mentions, I'm just gonna list them off. I'm not gonna really talk about them too much, but here you go. Happy Death Day to You, Parasite, Rocketman, The Irishman, Annabelle Comes Home, It Chapter 2, Detective Pikachu, Crawl, Paddleton, Dolomite Is My Name, Child's Play, 3 from Hell, and Captain Marvel. So those are my honorable mentions. Those are the films that I really enjoyed this year, but they just barely missed the top 19. They were almost there, but they barely missed it. Before we get to the list, I do want to mention one more film for my honorable mentions, and that is Kate Nash's Underestimate the Girl. Now, this film originally was actually in my top 10 films of the year, but I decided to take it out because it's the only documentary on my list, and I wanted to focus more on narrative films. But that being said, I think that it's a really good documentary that you guys should all check out whenever it comes out. It's still on the film festival circuit, but I think you guys should all check it out. It's really insightful into the music industry and how women in the music industry are treated. Granted, I'm a Kate Nash fan, so I'm a little biased, but I do think it's really good. Now, without further ado, let's get to my top 19 films of 2019, starting with number 19, DC's Shazam. Shazam is directed by David F. Sandberg, starring Zachary Levi, Asher Angel, and Jack Dylan Grazer. DC has been on a roll lately with Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and now with Shazam. They had a little bit of a few missteps with like Suicide Squad and Justice League, but I think they've started to go in a new direction and they've really been knocking it out of the park with their latest films, Shazam being no exception. I thought it was really fun without skimping out on some of the dark stuff that DC is known for. There's a scene in a boardroom with some demons that I'm not going to spoil in case you haven't seen it, but it's actually pretty dark for a film that seems like it should be for kids. It's a great movie, it's a lot of fun, and I really do hope that DC continues to ride this wave of success. They've been doing a pretty good job, and Shazam is really fun. It made my number 19. Coming in at number 18 is The Art of Self-Defense, directed by Riley Stearns and starring Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots. The Art of Self-Defense is Riley Stearns' second film following his first film, Fault, and just like Fault, The Art of Self-Defense is a black comedy. This film tackles toxic masculinity in a humorous way, but also in a dark way, and it kind of caught me off guard at how dark this film actually got. There's no redemption for any of these characters, but there doesn't need to be. Not every film needs to redeem their characters, and I think that Riley Stearns really tackled toxic masculinity in a unique way that we haven't really seen, and he's 2 for 2 in my book. Number 17 is Hustlers, starring Constance Wu and Jennifer Lopez. I gotta say, Hustlers really surprised me. When I saw the trailer, I knew I was gonna like it, but I didn't know how much I was gonna like it. And then I started reading reviews and people were praising it, saying that this was Jennifer Lopez's best role, and they were right. This film is really good. It's based on a true story. If you haven't heard about the true story, go do the research. It's a really crazy story. These things that these women did to these men, even though these men in a way they kind of deserved it, to say the least, but it's wild. It's a wild story. I don't want to say too much. Just go check it out. This film is really good. Number 16 is The Last Black Man in San Francisco. The film is partly based on the star Jimmy Fails' life. It deals with gentrification in San Francisco, and it's about Jimmy Fails trying to secure this house that his grandfather built in this market where the house that he no longer owns is going for millions of dollars. It's just such a beautiful film. I just cannot sing its praises enough. It's shot beautifully. If this was an objective list, this film would be way higher than it's listed, but it's just other films, like I said before, other films that are ranked higher just have more of a rewatchability for me personally, but it's such a good film. It's such a really beautifully shot, beautifully written film about gentrification and how it affects particularly African Americans in San Francisco, and it's a beautiful, heartfelt story. Go watch it. Also, I want to mention there's a song in this film called San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair. It is such a beautiful song. If it doesn't get nominated at the Oscars for Best Song, it's a travesty. This song is so beautiful. It deserves to be nominated. deserves to win. What song is better than that this year? Now we've made it to my top 15, and coming in at number 15 is Marriage Story, directed by Noah Baumbach, starring Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. Now, just like the last film I just talked about, if this was an objective list, Marriage Story would be ranked way higher, probably in my top 5. It's such a heartbreaking film. It deals with divorce and the breakdown between the relationship of Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson's relationship and how it affects their son. It's just so heartbreaking, so realistic. If you've been through a divorce, if you've ever seen your parents go through a divorce, or anyone you know go through a divorce, you know how hard it can be, and this film really captures that. Just like Noah Baumbach's earlier film, The Squid and the Whale, but The Squid and the Whale kind of dealt with it in the perspective of the kids, whereas Marriage Story shows the perspective of the parents and how they deal with it. It's just, you know, it's just two different sides of the coin, but it really just further shows how much a divorce can really affect the family. Scarlett Johansson's on another level. Adam Driver's always great, and I have no doubt this is going to be nominated for Best Picture. Coming in at number 14 is Midsommar, directed by Ari Aster and starring Florence Pugh. Midsommar is a very fucked up film. Sorry for my language, I just gotta say it's really fucked up. But it's no surprise coming from the director of Hereditary. Now, if you don't know me, I'm a horror fan, and I'm a sucker for these types of films like The Wicker Man and The Village. Florence Pugh is having an incredible year between this and another film that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And then next year, she's going to be in Black Widow, and she's just having a crazy good year. She's one of my favorite working actresses right now, and you can just tell she's going to be a huge star. Number 13 is The Peanut Butter Falcon, starring Shia LaBeouf and Dakota Johnson. If you haven't heard about this film, it's about a kid with Down syndrome who has the dreams of becoming a professional wrestler, and he decides to take it into his own hands when no one else would let him, and go on a journey where he eventually meets Shia LaBeouf. Dakota Johnson, if you only know her from the 50 Shades movies, don't underestimate her. She has such a beautiful performance in this film, and this film is actually starring an actual person with Down syndrome. The directors of this film, they had to fight to get a studio who would actually allow a kid with Down syndrome to star in the film. They didn't want that. Shia LaBeouf heard about this movie and he really backed it, and I'm glad that it ended up coming out the way that it did. It's just a really heartwarming story, starring also Mick Foley and Jake the Snake Roberts. They're in there as well, and you should check it out. I think it's really underrated. A lot of like film Twitter is talking about it, but not a lot of mainstream people. Hopefully it gets some award consideration, but it's not looking like it, and I think that's such a shame, really. Now, I mentioned earlier that there was another Florence Pugh film that made my list, and that film is Fighting with My Family, coming in at number 12. It's directed by Stephen Merchant, and it's also starring The Rock. This film is so inspiring and funny at the same time. Florence Pugh knocks it out of the park, so does everyone else involved. Nick Frost is hilarious, Lena Headey is great, Vince Vaughn is great, and The Rock brings an electricity that only The Rock could. Even though his role in the film is actually kind of small, but he brings such another level to this film without overshadowing everyone else. Fighting with My Family is based off of the life of WWE superstar Paige. Now, if you haven't heard Paige's story, her and her brother tried out for the WWE, and only she made it in. So it started to affect her relationship with her brother, and she had to decide whether she wanted to go back to England and give up her dream, or go and chase that dream even if her brother wasn't so happy about it. If you have a chance, go watch it. It didn't make a whole lot of money in the theater, unfortunately, which is surprising because WWE fans usually go out and support WWE's films, but I guess they got burned from all the crappy films that they put out. But this one's not crappy. This one's really good, and it's definitely one of my favorite films of 2019. Number 11 is Glass. It is the third film in M. Night Shyamalan's superhero trilogy, starring Bruce Willis, Samuel Jackson, and James McAvoy. This film follows M. Night Shyamalan's earlier films Unbreakable and Split, and I have to be honest, as a lot of people have agreed upon, this is definitely the weakest film in the trilogy. Unbreakable I consider to be a masterpiece, and I loved Split even before I knew it was a sequel to Unbreakable. I don't love all of the choices made in this film, but like I said, this isn't an objective list, this is a subjective list, and even though I didn't like certain things that were done in the film, I still overall really enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I liked how they got into the psychology of all three different heroes or villains in Samuel Jackson and James McAvoy's case. I wish they would have done a little bit more with Anya Taylor-Joy's character. I feel like she was kind of thrown to the wayside. Even Bruce Willis's character, I felt like didn't do much. And I actually think Bruce Willis did a pretty good job in this film. He seems, you know, the last few years seems to kind of phone in his performances, but I think he actually was kind of trying with this film, so it's a shame that his character didn't get enough focus. But overall, I enjoyed it. I'm an M. Night Shyamalan fan. The ending, I'm a little mixed on. I'm still trying to struggle with how I feel about the ending, but I enjoyed it overall. I know it doesn't seem like such a positive review, but I really did like it, enough to where it made number 11. And I think I'll rewatch this more than I'll rewatch films that are objectively better, like Marriage Story. I'll watch Glass more. Hey, if you don't like it, comment below, let me know what you think. We have officially made it to my top 10 films of 2019, and number 10 is Booksmart, directed by Olivia Wilde and starring Beanie Feldstein and Kaitlyn Dever. A lot of people have compared Booksmart to Superbad, calling it the female Superbad, and I think in some ways that's true, but in some ways not. I think the comparison more so comes because Beanie Feldstein is Jonah Hill's sister, and they're both hilarious. They both have so much talent, and Kaitlyn Dever is one of my favorite actresses right now. She can do no wrong. This year alone, she was in Netflix's series Unbreakable with a powerful performance, and she's just as good here. She's just as great in this film. I love how this film kind of flips some of the tropes in these high school coming of age films, where those films kind of show how, you know, the stoners and the partiers and the drinkers or whatever, they don't usually get into good schools and they throw away their lives. This film flips that. It shows that even if you party and have fun in high school, it doesn't mean you're not gonna have a successful life. These girls thought that way, and they didn't have any fun in high school, and they just focused on school. And once they realized that all these other people that they looked down on were making it to Ivy Leagues and these great schools, they decided that they wanted to have one last night of fun before graduation. And the hilariosity that ensues is just incredible. I also want to shout out Billie Lourd, who's also in this film. Her character is just so wacky and out of left field, and she's definitely a highlight of this film. It's a really funny coming of age film, and it really shows that Olivia Wilde has a really great career ahead of her as a director, and I can't wait to see what she comes out with next. Number 9 is Ready or Not, starring Samara Weaving, Andy McDowell, and Adam Brody. Samara Weaving is the queen of horror comedies right now. Between Ready or Not, The Babysitter, Mayhem, she's just been absolutely crushing it in this genre, and it's no different here in Ready or Not. She is awesome. The film is awesome. It's bloody, it's funny, it's different, unique. I knew from the instant I saw the trailer I was gonna love this film. I already am a fan of Samara Weaving, so I was gonna see this regardless, and it was definitely one of the funnest times I had in theaters. The cast all around the board is great. Andy McDowell, of course, is a legend at this point, and it's bloody, funny, just an overall good time. Now, my number 8 is a film that I don't think is going to be on anyone else's list, not because it's not a good film, but because it's actually not out yet. That film is The Short History of the Long Road, starring Sabrina Carpenter and Danny Trejo. I got lucky enough to see this film at the Tribeca Film Festival, and anyone who knows me knows how big of a fan I am of Sabrina Carpenter, so to see it early before it's out to the public was an honor, and I just really loved this film. I really did. Yes, I have a bias, but I really did enjoy this film. It's a really engaging coming of age film that deals with grief and being forced into adulthood. Sabrina's character Nola deals with a tragedy that forces her to live on her own on the road, and her performance is so powerful, as I expected, because I already know how great she is. She was in a film earlier this year, Tall Girl, which I didn't really love. She was great in it, of course, but I didn't really love it. It was kind of cheesy. It almost made my honorable mentions just because of my bias, but I couldn't do it, I'm sorry. Nothing against the filmmakers or the cast. The cast is phenomenal in Tall Girl, but it's just very cheesy. This film, on the other hand, isn't that. I had a few gripes with this film, nothing big, just a few gripes. One of the most notable gripes that I had was that it felt like the stakes were never that high. Every time Nola got into trouble or got into a situation, she kind of got out of it easily. It's not a big deal. That's not what the film wanted to do, and I understand that. I just personally wish that the stakes felt a little bit more higher, but either way, at the end of the day, it's a really emotional film, really great. I don't know when it's gonna come out. Like I said, it's still on the film festival circuit, but whenever it does, whether it's in theaters or VOD or whatever, I really recommend it. Go check it out. If you haven't seen Sabrina's other work, she was in a film called I Hate You Give last year, which was an incredible film, my favorite film of the year. She's gonna be in a bunch of stuff next year. She's still doing music. She's gonna be a huge star, so make sure you check out all of her stuff. Coming in at number 7 is Spider-Man Far From Home, directed by John Watts and starring Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jake Gyllenhaal. Spider-Man Far From Home is the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, which is one of my favorite MCU films, and this one is right up there with it. I really loved it. Just like Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home is funny, action-packed, emotional, has great villain with Mysterio this time around. Jake Gyllenhaal is awesome as Mysterio. He's such a great actor. I love watching his performances, and he's so good in this one. Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury, is hilarious as always, and Zendaya is great. I think they actually gave MJ more to do in this film, and I'm really happy for that because I think that Zendaya is such an incredible actress, and she does so much with this role. Tom Holland is great. I mean, what else can I say about it? He's the perfect Spider-Man. Sorry, Tobey Maguire fans, he just is. In the mid-credit scene, make sure you stick around for it. I don't know how they're gonna resolve it. I'm really excited for Spider-Man 3. I'm glad that Disney and Sony put aside their petty bullshit and we're gonna get another one in the MCU. Probably only one more, but I'm excited for it. And Jon Watts has done such an incredible job directing these films. This film is really fun. It's really great. One of my favorite MCU films, up there with Homecoming and The Winter Soldier and Infinity War, and another film that I may be talking about later. Let's see. Number 6 is Jordan Peele's Us, starring Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and Elizabeth Moss. If you ask me, Jordan Peele is a modern horror master. He blew up on the scene with Get Out, which was such a huge movie and such an incredible psychological thriller, horror, whatever you want to consider it. I consider it a horror movie, but you know, all those stupid debates on whether certain movies are horror or not just because they're elevated horror, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Get Out was incredible, and so is Us. I've seen some people actually kind of divided on this film, which I kind of get, but I thought this film was really scary. I loved the twist. Some people didn't like it. I personally loved it. And just like Get Out, Us deals with social issues. Maybe not as much as Get Out did, but this one definitely did, especially with like class issues and stuff like that. So it's a really good film. It came out early in the year, and it instantly made my top favorite films of the year list. That's it, guys. We're here at my top 5 favorite films of 2019, and number 5 is Dr. Sleep, directed by Mike Flanagan and starring Ewan McGregor and Rebecca Ferguson. Dr. Sleep is a sequel to both Stephen King's book The Shining and Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining. This film blew me away. It really did. I didn't know what to expect coming into it. Mike Flanagan has such a good track record, so I was really optimistic, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know how they were gonna handle the film and the book since they're so different, and Stephen King has been very vocal about his displeasure with Stanley Kubrick's film, and I think they really handled it well. They balanced both the book and the film. They had nods to the film, visual nods to the film, while also staying true to the source material of the first book of Stephen King's The Shining, as well as Stephen King's sequel book, Dr. Sleep, which this is based off of. Ewan McGregor is awesome as Danny Torrance. I'm really excited to see him come back as Obi-Wan in the Disney Plus series. He really shows the emotional turmoil that Danny Torrance is dealing with inside of him after the events of the first film. He became a drunk, and him suppressing The Shining and finding out that there's someone out there who's just as powerful as him, but then there's also people out there, these people that are part of this cult called the True Knot, who feed on people with The Shining. The True Knot is led by Rose the Hat, who is played by Rebecca Ferguson, and she is phenomenal in this film. I mean, she is terrifying. She is absolutely terrifying, hypnotizing. I can't sing the praises of this film anymore. It's a near perfect film for me. I was a little mixed on the ending, but once the film ended and I got to really think about it, I accepted it, and I liked it. It was good. This film is great. I hope Mike Flanagan does more Stephen King adaptations. I think he just really gets the essence of Stephen King's books, and go check it out. Now, my next film is gonna be a bit controversial, but guess what? I don't give a fuck. My next film in number 4 is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, directed by J.J. Abrams and starring Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac. Now, I'm gonna be honest. Was The Rise of Skywalker perfect? No. Were there decisions made that I would have done differently? Yes. But we got what we got, and I had to either accept it or be angry about it. I don't want to be angry. Like I said, there's certain things I would have done differently. I didn't really love all of the choices, but I did have a good time watching it, and that's really what I went into wanting, was to have a really fun, good time, to see everything wrapped up in a satisfying way, and I think it was satisfying. Even if I didn't agree on everything, I think it was satisfying enough. Adam Driver is fantastic, as always, just like he was in Marriage Story. He's great here as Kylo Ren. Daisy Ridley as Rey is awesome. I have to give props to J.J. Abrams for being able to handle the tragedy of losing Carrie Fisher. As some of you may already know, Carrie Fisher died in 2016 after filming The Last Jedi, so she didn't film anything for this film. They used footage that they had from The Force Awakens to give her a part in this film, and I think that JJ did what he could with it, and I think he did it to the best of his ability. I like the way that Leia's arc was handled. I wish she was here, we all do, but I think it was handled the best way possible, and overall I just had fun. It's my number 4 again. This is a subjective list. This is just, I'll rewatch Rise of Skywalker a million times before I rewatch The Last Black Man in San Francisco or Marriage Story, even though those films are fucking incredible. I'll watch this film more. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, so it's number 4. Number 3 is Joker, directed by Todd Phillips and starring Joaquin Phoenix, Zazie Beetz, and Robert De Niro. When I heard they were doing a Joker origin story, like a lot of people, I wasn't sure how to feel. But once I heard that they were going down the vein of kind of like Martin Scorsese's films, like Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, I got a little bit more excited. I kind of hoped that he was going to direct it, but we already know his feelings on comic book movies. That being said, I think Todd Phillips did an incredible job. This film is beautifully shot. The score is incredible. Joaquin Phoenix's performance, as expected, is just insane. The way that he makes us kind of feel sympathetic for the Joker at first, which I didn't want to feel sympathetic for the Joker. I didn't want them to go down that path. And at first it feels that way. But then we realize just how crazy this man is, and we don't feel sympathetic for him at all. It was a different take on the Joker's origin. There's very obvious inspirations from Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy and the Killing Joke storyline, but I still think Todd Phillips did it in a very unique way that a lot of directors probably wouldn't have done it. I love so much about this film, so much. I have very little issues with this film. Fuck all the so-called controversy that was going into this film. If you didn't watch it because of that, don't do yourself a disservice. See this movie. It's an incredible film. They're talking about doing a sequel. I think that this film ends in a very satisfying way. Doesn't need a sequel, but if we get Joaquin Phoenix back and we get Todd Phillips back, who knows? Maybe the sequel will be just as good, so let's see. Coming in at number 2 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, directed by the master Quentin Tarantino, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Bruce Dern, Al Pacino, and so many more. This cast is phenomenal. I mean, you have Dakota Fanning, Emile Hirsch, Margaret Qualley, Harley Quinn Smith, Sydney Sweeney. So many people in this film that are so good, so good. I love this film. I fucking love this film. I know some people complained about the length and said that 40 minutes could have been cut out. I disagree. I was relishing in every second of this film. I was relishing in every second of this film. This is by far Quentin Tarantino's funniest film, which I was surprised that he was doing a comedy, but he knocks it out of the park. Margot Robbie brings such a sweet, emotional, heartfelt performance to Sharon Tate, which brings me to the fact of like the controversy that came with this film, the fact that it tackled her murder by the hands of the Manson family and Charles Manson. I think that Quentin Tarantino handled it in a very respectful way, as respectful as possible, and I don't want to obviously spoil anything with the film, but I think it ended on a really sweet note. Now, right before that, slight spoiler, it's a very bloody, violent ending that people had problems with, and I get it, but at the same time, I'm not gonna feel bad about the Manson family getting murdered. Sorry, I'm just not gonna feel bad about the Manson family getting murdered. But overall, the film is really great. The production design on it is insane. Leo's great. The MVP of this film is Julia Butters. Let me tell you, she is hilarious in this film. If you haven't seen American Housewife, the sitcom, she's great on that. She's so funny on that for being such a young actress. She's hilarious, and she's the same in this film. She is awesome. Everyone in this film is awesome. It's just such a great cast. The music's great. I mean, it's Quentin, like, what can you expect? He knows how to cast people. He knows how to put music in his films. He knows how to shoot his films. There's no surprise that this came in at number 2. He's my favorite director. Now, without further ado, my favorite movie of 2019, Avengers Endgame, directed by the Russo brothers and starring Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, and every fucking Avenger. Avengers Endgame is the culmination of the entire MCU so far, 11 years worth of films, and it's insane how Kevin Feige and the entire team at Marvel was able to pull this off. This, together with Infinity War. It's a beautiful film. I know, like I mentioned earlier, Scorsese's comments on comic book films and how they're popcorn films. This is not that. This is a big budget film that focuses on characters, that focuses on emotional beats, and is not afraid to take risks. It's not. You saw that already with Infinity War and how that ended. This is just the same. Just to see the way that the snap or the blip or whatever you want to call it, affected all of these heroes, and that failure, the failure from the end of Infinity War, how that affected them, especially Tony and Chris Evans, or Captain America. Everyone across the board was phenomenal. I'm so happy that Marvel was able to hit the mark with this film, and even if going forward, if the Marvel film starts to decline in quality, which I don't think they will, but if they do, at least we have this. We have the Infinity Saga, and I just had so much fun with this film. The 3 hours flew by. I do think Infinity War felt a little bit faster paced than this one. I think the first kind of hour of this film feels a little slower because we're dealing with the aftermath of the snap and all the emotional aspects of everything. But once that hour is up and once they decide to take action, it flies by. And the ending, oh my God, the ending is one of the greatest moments in comic book film history. If you're a comic book fan, if you're just a fan of film, go see this movie. It's incredible. Avengers Endgame, my favorite film of the year, Avengers Assemble. And that's it. Those are my top 19 films of 2019. If you like what you've seen today and you're not subscribed already, please subscribe. Please like the video. Comment down below your favorite films of the year. I really want to know. We plan on doing more of these types of videos in the future, so if you liked it, please support the video. I'm only going to do these videos if I know you guys want it, so please show your support. Like I said, comment down below your favorite films of 2019. Also comment what other types of videos you want me to see. Do you want me to do a Q&A? Do you want me to do my least favorite films of 2019? I don't know. Just let me know and we'll get to it. Thank you for joining us. We are so grateful to have your support from last year. Last year was such an incredible year for us here at Spoiled Brat Films, and we hope 2020 is great for not only us, but for you guys too. And we hope you join us on this journey. I'm Nick Hernandez, founder of Spoiled Brat Films. I'll see you later.